Alrighty, hello every folks, and welcome to another explanation of another mechanic that finally got explained. So this one comes courtesy of Mr. Rucession, who's been studying a lot of the inner workings and codes and other type magical things off in the background there. But he was looking for more accurate information on the Prevailing element system. For those unaware, every single map that you go into has a constant building score in the background here. We're going to look at it over here on the right. The only time that you actually get a full kind of numerical value of the score is through the Nature's Whisper ability on the Shaman. But basically, this is a score that is constantly going to be stacking up based on abilities used. So things like finishers, things like spells, all of that kind of thing will end up building up and tearing down those particular affinities off on the right there. So, like right there, she used a summon which raised Earth by 4 and reduced Lightning by 2. There's a constant kind of fight going on between different elements in the background, and it's one of those things that contributes to certain moves kind of throwing their numbers into pretty wacky situations. So we finally got concrete data on what exactly each of these do. I'll include a link to the subreddit thing to basically cover the nitty-gritty of all of this. But we know that there's at least two direct functions. So elemental finishers and other special attacks are modified by Prevailing element basically every time that they're used, and then spells are directly affected. But as was previously theorized, it's basically only affecting overhead damage, so it's only after you've already gotten past defenses. To quote Mr. Rucession here, here's how this is put into words. So, these Prevailing element values only seem to apply to damage dealt or received in the following scenario, and their values are divided by 2 when applied. When the element of the attacker's action, basic attack / special attack / finisher / spell, is strong against the defender's affinity, the matching or positive Prevailing element value will be applied as a positive percentage modifier to the attacker's stat overhead or Prevailing element bonus. If the value of the matching element is negative, it will be applied as a negative percentage modifier to the attacker's stat overhead, which is the Prevailing element penalty. With a slight correction added to this, Prevailing element bonuses do not require the attacker to be wielding a one-handed weapon with an accompanying offhand item to apply to damage done by spells and special attacks. The attack can even be barehanded. The only requirements are that the element of the action matches the Prevailing element and is strong against the defender's affinity, which actually leads to an interesting thing. Because theoretically then, if you have a off-element spell type thing, there actually might be very, very, very particular situations during challenge runs wherein it might actually end up being the stronger options. It's absurdly specific, but just something to consider. In the above scenario, if the combined value of the Prevailing element penalty plus any active elemental resistance on the defender's armor exceeds the attacker's element damage bonus value, then any excess points of Prevailing element will not contribute to a reduction of the attacker's stat overhead. If you're wondering what the stat overhead is, it is the result of subtracting the defender's contribution to damage reduction from strength and vitality or mind and resistance, from the attacker's contribution to damage dealt from the strength and dex or int and mind, and represents the base stat overhead that the attacker has on the defender. A more thorough explanation can be found in the in-depth instructions pages for the damage calculators attached to the Google Sheets linked above. So that's what I'll include in the description there if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, but the kind of baseline level of this whole thing is that it will affect pretty much finishers, special attacks, so like I presume this means all beast type attacks. So for example, this might actually provide a use for something like a Maelstrom, which is very oddly specifically out of place. Yes, so you can potentially boost those using this particular thing. So it's basically one of those things that causes elemental stacking to be pretty good under very oddly specific circumstances, but you can think of it as mostly applying to heavy attacks because a lot of light attacks will not necessarily get past defenses, so just something to consider. Additionally, I'm assuming the same old thing applies of Knight Commander finishers not actually scaling, so I would assume that wouldn't affect those weapons, but like, for example, that the Crushing Blow off of the Balmung, I would assume would not be affected. But either darn ways, that's the over and under on that whole thing. I gotta get going. Y'all have a good one, and yeah, make sure to go check out his full post for all of the details. And yeah, I'm just glad to see that we have yet another mechanic that's been figured out. All right, take care. Bye.